What is up, and welcome to the Lakers Theory Podcast. I am Shane Jackson. Joining with me, as always, is Austin Case here on Wednesday, June 1st, because the Lakers have landed their next head coach. Darvin Ham is our man. They haven't really made it official. The Lakers. I was searching their Twitter. Honestly, I thought I just didn't see it the last couple of days, and I don't really know what they're waiting on. It's been reported by basically everyone since I think last Friday. I don't know. It was like last weekend. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a few days. I thought that it would be kind of like right in line with these next couple of days leading up to the finals and give them kind of like a little limelight for a little bit. But they still have not done it. But we're just going to assume all these reports are right. And Darvin Ham is the next head coach. This podcast won't be long because we won't pretend like we know everything about this guy. But during the coaching search process, he became, quickly my favorite guy, mostly because smart people on Lakers Twitter were all about him. And the more I read about him, the more excited I was. But I want Austin's take first. Austin, what do you think about Darvin Ham being the head coach of the Lakers?
Well, like you, I also don't really know much about him. And you probably know more about him than I do still. But I think it's he was with the Bucks, right?
Yeah.
So I can't confirm this, but my thought is he worked with Giannis probably quite a bit. So my first thought is this could be great for Anthony Davis. This could unlock something in his game that just, takes him to the next level. And so that I hope I see that. That's where my mind's at right now. But yeah, smart basketball Lakers Twitter, Lakers people who are smart about it. They like this guy. I saw LeBron was excited for it, and I was like, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
You look at the little things with him, then you can say, all right, if he can implement something like this or do something like this here, then I think it will be good. So honestly, we just have to wait and see, and that's the worst thing ever.
Yeah. And it's great actually in a way that we don't know a whole lot about him because this is his first time as a head coach, and that's not a avenue the Lakers have done a lot in the past. They tend to go for the kind of flashy hire, but this was the the first time head coach who has a lot of potential that the NBA world was kind of eager about or getting eager about, and that's a risk for a team that theoretically believes it's a championship contender. It has to with the way LeBron's at his age and Anthony Davis the way he has played. So I don't know. I think to me that's the interesting part is that it's so different from what the Lakers have done in the past. In a lot of ways, though, it's similar to Frank Vogel, right? He's credited with the defensive kind of scheme for the Bucks. A lot of defensive things he did for that team was a champion. He is a two-time champion, by the way. He played for the Pistons back in 03-04 as a player. And, a lot of people are talking about how that's a big deal, having that kind of player background and commanding a kind of respect around the locker room, which kind of leads into what you mentioned about LeBron being excited about him, right? Like that's the type of player that's the type of coach who can command some respect, when you've worked with a guy like Giannis, when you've worked with Kobe Bryant as an assistant for the Lakers back in 2010. And so, that's a good thing because if you go back, I think if you look at LeBron's Twitter, he did not necessarily tweet about how excited he was about the Frank Vogel hiring. He did show up at the press conference, and that was a big story. But obviously at the time, he wanted Lou to be the guy, and the Lakers kind of lowballed that reportedly. So just a lot of different tactics this time around by the Lakers. Rumor has it they're going to let Ham kind of pick his staff out. And have a little bit more control, and that's a good thing. Maybe the Lakers are learning from their mistakes, or maybe they just don't want to get criticized when this all goes terribly wrong. I don't really know, but hopefully it leads to kind of better process for the Lakers, and that's enough to be excited about. I don't think either of us are going to say, "Hey, this is it. This was the piece that we needed. This was the easy decision for the kind of Lakers front office." And now is when it gets hard. They have a roster that's a mess, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with it. But in terms of the coaching search, they took their time. It looks like they did their due diligence, and they picked the guy that was kind of the favorite for a lot of people. And the last couple of years have not been a lot of great decisions for the Lakers, and this was one of them, or at least it was easy enough they didn't mess it up, and so that's enough for me, anyways. Any final thoughts on kind of Darvin Ham?
Not really. There's so much unknown, like what he's gonna do. Like he has 3, maybe 4 guys on his roster right now, so you have to start there. So we're not really going to know a whole lot until we can get into free agency and see what kind of roster they're building and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that. I love that stuff. It's interesting. So I just look forward to that next process.
Ham is the 28th coach in Lakers history, 6 in the past 11 years. Also the news happened conveniently right at the time that I was watching Winning Time, and for the first time, and they were going through the coaching search. So don't tell me a coach doesn't matter, because the show basically tells me it does. But no, this was Ham did get his 4-year contract. I don't think I mentioned the details. That's a good news, because it felt like Frank Vogel got that 1 year prove it almost right after the championship. Kind of extension. So even that part feels like the Lakers are doing things a little bit differently and deserve some sort of credit there for maybe learning from their mistakes again. So it just feels a little bit different from how they handled basically everything in the Vogel era. And again, whether that was, because they learned some mistakes, or they just were getting tired of people, kind of writing columns about them and trashing them on networks. Maybe they're just tired of bad press. Either way, it's different from Frank Vogel. Who knows if it'll lead to a championship like it did with Frank Vogel. That is the hope. I think the one last piece of kind of the Ham puzzle for me, as we learn more about him, we'll have better answers about him. But I do think it's interesting what he said maybe about Russell Westbrook in the interview process, right? Like I think there has to be some inkling for the Lakers front office to believe that, if the right coach was here, maybe they could get the most out of Russell Westbrook on this current roster, right? Or at least you had to have the answer. Like that had to be part of the interview process, because it's going to be extremely hard to get rid of Russell Westbrook. So we don't know if it's going to happen. And so I have to feel like one of the answers is, what did Darvin Ham say about that? What did he say? How does Russell Westbrook fit into that piece? To me, that is one of the more interesting parts. We'll never know the answer, or at least not until the season, if Russell Westbrook is on this roster. Maybe I wish Russell Wilson was on this roster. But no, that is, to me anyways, the interesting part about this.
Yeah, that's fair. I know that was kind of one of the things that I took out of the interview process was they were asking guys, what do you do with Russ? How do you use him? So he said the right thing, and so I'm curious what the situation's going to be. Is are they going to run it back with Russ? I feel like it's a no-brainer for him to pick up his player option. I assume he's going to be back on the team. I'm preparing myself mentally to have him on the team again. So he said something good enough on how to use him. So I feel like they're going to go with that, and maybe he's more confident about what he wants to do with Russ, and maybe that's not something they had last year.
Oh, it should also be worth noting The Athletic did their little coach rankings in the offseason of potentially available coaches, and Ham was number 2. Quinn Snyder was actually number 1, who didn't become available. And so that's pretty good. So the Lakers, again, it was an easy decision. It felt like it kind of slam dunk for them, and they didn't mess it up. So they get kind of a couple stars there, maybe 1 thumbs up instead of 2 for this hiring and not messing it up. So let's kind of close out this podcast. It is the NBA Finals time, which is kind of why I'm wearing my shirt, NBA Finals of Better Days, because this is probably my least favorite matchup that could have happened in the NBA playoffs. We get the Boston Celtics versus the Golden State Warriors. So anybody who's listened to this podcast for, since the first episode knows that I came to the Lakers through LeBron, and therefore I was a LeBron fan. With the Cavaliers and the Warriors were kind of our nemesis at the time. And so I hated them during their kind of rise and run. And then obviously I've grown to hate the Boston Celtics, being a part of kind of Lakers Nation and getting the feel with Austin through that. So this is possibly my least favorite outcome for finals. I will watch it. I will bet on it because that is what I do. But I'm not looking forward to it. If I did want to preview it a little bit, what do you think is going to happen? What are you looking forward
to? I mean, like you, I wished any other two teams were here. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. If the Clippers were there, I probably don't watch it all. But I don't know, man. I think it's a lethal offense in the Warriors, with a fairly good defense versus a strong offense and very strong defense. So I think it's going to be a great matchup, honestly. I don't know. I don't know who I want to win. I don't want the Celtics to win. That's just annoying to think about them winning. But on the flip side of that, dude, I love Jason Tatum. If he's not going against the Lakers, I will root for his success. So, if the Celtics do win this, I will be upset, but I'm gonna be happy for Jason Tatum because, like me, that dude loved Kobe Bryant. He tries to play the game like Kobe did, and that's just something I'm not gonna root against ever. So, I would rather the Warriors team win. But if Jason Tatum and the Celtics are victorious, I will be happy for him only.
Yeah. No, that all makes sense. You've kind of explained it over text several times, so I did want you to have the floor there to say it out loud. I do think this finals matchup is interesting because I believe the betting odds have it Warriors minus 155. And this is like the closest series price we've had in the finals in quite some time. A lot of times it's like minus 240 or whatever for the favorite or whatever. And so I think the betting odds say that the Warriors have the edge here, and there's a lot of models who say the Boston Celtics have the edge. 538 famously has been on the Celtics since like March, and BPI. Or ESPN's metric has the Celtics favored as well. A lot of smart people favor the Celtics because of their defense. And I do think it's a lot closer than maybe a lot of Vegas type of people think. So I do think it's going to be a good series. I think it'll go 6 games. I think I officially predicted 7, but no finals ever go 7, it feels like. And so, I think the Warriors eventually win. Just this offense with the way they can close out games, it's just incredible. The way they haven't lost at home in the postseason, they have home court advantage. They're going to win game 1. I mean, all signs point to that. And from there, they're in the driver's seat. And I think they already are. The Celtics, at their best, look like they can be the best team in the NBA. But they have lulls. Like they go through moments where they just it feels like they forget how to play basketball, or they have turnovers. It's crazy. But no, I do think it's going to be interesting. I will lean Warriors in my prediction. I won't have a rooting interest. I'll have a betting interest, but that's pretty much it. What was your prediction for the finals?
Well, I think when we originally previewed the playoffs, I had the Warriors and the Bulls in the finals. So I have to stick with the Warriors since they're the only team left in my prediction. So I'm going to say Warriors in 7.
Okay, nice. 7-game series would be pretty dope. Yeah, I forgot that you predicted Warriors and Bulls. Way to call back on that one because I remember mine, and I'm pretty sure I had Lakers in the finals and the Bucks beating them in the finals. So not my best look. But yeah, maybe it'll be next year for the Lakers. I've already looked at the title odds, and Clippers are the second favorite behind the Warriors, by the way. Because they're going to be healthy next year. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold this offseason for the Lakers and for everybody. I'm sure we'll be back at some point. It probably won't be again during the finals unless something crazy happens for the Lakers, like Russell Westbrook gets traded, which isn't even possible. But no, that we'll be back at some point in the offseason to just kind of talk about update on any roster things that happen. But until then, we're excited about Darvin Ham, as excited as we can be without knowing a whole lot about him. And we're not excited about the finals. He's Austin Case. I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening to the Lakers Theory podcast, and see you next time.